But should anything be redacted on the royal family, apart from security issues?
Well, this, I think, is the debate of how the royal family play the PR game going forward.
Just when the royal family thought Prince Andrew was behind them, a new controversy has emerged, this one with a striking figure attached, £90,000. It has sparked fresh attention and debate this week. Official government documents detailing Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's overseas travel were scheduled for release as part of the National Archives' annual document drop. Typically, these releases are routine and largely overlooked, but this year events unfolded differently. At the very last moment, the Cabinet Office intervened and blocked part of the file, raising immediate questions about the timing. The documents focus on a 2004 Royal Visits Committee meeting. Among routine discussions, the minutes reveal debates over Andrew's foreign trips while serving as the UK's special trade representative. Specifically, the committee considered how to fund an additional £90,000 to cover these overseas engagements. On the surface, the discussions appear procedural and unremarkable. However, as journalists began reviewing the files, the sensitive sections were suddenly closed under a legal exemption protecting royal family information. The last-minute restriction has fueled speculation and renewed scrutiny of Andrew's activities abroad, demonstrating how even decades-old matters can resurface unexpectedly, reigniting public interest in the monarchy's financial and diplomatic dealings.
The Invisible Man. All signs point to that being Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the former Duke of York. In a 2001 email to convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, the Invisible Man writes, "I'm here at Balmoral summer camp for the royal family."
When the documents finally reappeared, they were barely recognizable. 16 of the 80 pages had been removed entirely, while the remainder was heavily redacted. The Cabinet Office later claimed this was due to an administrative error, insisting the files were never meant to be fully released. For many, however, that explanation falls flat, especially given how routine these archival drops usually are from the unredacted sections. It's clear officials were discussing the costs of Andrew's trips to China, Russia, Spain, and parts of Southeast Asia. These were not private holidays, they were official journeys carried out in his role as the UK's special trade envoy, a position he held from 2001 to 2011. A change in royal travel rules had shifted the funding responsibility. Previously, the Department of Trade and Industry covered such trips, but under the new system, the Royal Travel Office would absorb the costs, hence the extra £90,000. On paper, it appears to be nothing more than a budgetary adjustment, accounting rather than scandal, and yet questions remain. Why the sudden secrecy, why the extensive redactions, and why after nearly 20 years does this minor administrative matter suddenly warrant intervention and attention? The timing, as ever, is what continues to intrigue journalists and the public alike.
Andrew has previously admitted to associating with Epstein, but denied any accusations of wrongdoing, including claims by the late Virginia Giuffre that she was trafficked to the then prince as a teenager.
This episode shines a spotlight on Andrew's controversial past. As a trade envoy during his tenure, he became notorious for constant international travel, earning the nickname Air Miles, and his journeys often took him to politically sensitive regions, raising eyebrows both at home and abroad. Beyond the travel, Andrew's choice of guests drew intense scrutiny. One of the most infamous was Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, son of Libya's then leader Muammar Gaddafi, who was welcomed at Buckingham Palace, an encounter that provoked widespread outrage and media criticism. He also hosted Zain El Abidine Ben Ali, son-in-law of Tunisia's former president, another figure associated with corruption and authoritarian rule. Andrew's connections sometimes intersected with financial controversies. Timur Kulib, son-in-law of Kazakhstan's president, became linked to one of Andrew's most puzzling property deals. In 2007, Kulib purchased Andrew's Sunning Hill Park mansion for £3 million, well above the £12 million asking price. The property had languished on the market for years, yet suddenly sold at a premium with no other bidders in sight. These episodes illustrate a pattern. Andrew's official role was often entwined with high-stakes diplomacy, sensitive politics, and unusual financial arrangements. While some interactions were framed as part of his duties, they repeatedly drew public scrutiny, leaving questions about judgment, propriety, and the line between diplomacy and personal benefit.
Andrew is far from the only figure to be implicated with the disgraced financier. Donald Trump's name has come up dozens of times in this latest release, including in an email from an assistant US attorney.
At the time, Andrew's actions overseas drew significant attention, and today they remain a recurring topic whenever his financial dealings are discussed. Diplomatic concerns about his behavior were also well documented. In 2010, a leaked US diplomatic cable released by WikiLeaks described him as speaking cockily during an official engagement, making remarks considered rude by professional standards. Notably, this critique came from a US ambassador, not a tabloid journalist. By 2011, mounting pressure over his expenses and associations with controversial figures forced Andrew to step down as the UK's trade envoy, and the role quietly disappeared. The nickname Air Miles, and however, persisted now. More than a decade later, government departments appear to be scrambling to keep details from that period out of public view. It is not just the additional £90,000 that has raised eyebrows, but the broader question of what might be concealed in the heavily redacted or missing pages of the archives. One recurring topic concerns Andrew's trips to Thailand. Multiple accounts over the years suggest he stayed in extremely expensive hotels, often funded at least partly by public or quasi-public money. These patterns of spending and behavior continue to fuel public scrutiny, raising questions about judgment, transparency, and accountability during his years as a royal diplomat.
According to royal historian Andrew Lowney, Andrew allegedly arranged for around 40 escorts to be brought to his 5-star hotel over just 4 days during what was a taxpayer-funded trade mission.
Many of Andrew's overseas trips were increasingly seen as personal indulgences rather than official trade missions. One particularly troubling allegation reported by multiple journalists and former insiders claimed that as many as 40 women allegedly came in and out of his hotel rooms during a single stay. While the exact details remain disputed and no official guest lists were ever released, the sheer scale of the claim caused serious concern at the time. These stories contributed to a growing perception within Whitehall that Andrew's judgment abroad was poor, his sense of entitlement unchecked, and his understanding of appropriate conduct increasingly misaligned with what was expected of someone representing the United Kingdom. Even then, officials privately worried about reputational damage, particularly given the lavish hotels, eye-watering bills, and lack of clear oversight regarding who was being entertained, and why the saga surrounding Jeffrey Epstein has served as a painful reminder for the royal family. Information has a way of resurfacing. Files can be reopened, whistleblowers speak out, and what once seemed safely buried often comes back at the most inconvenient moment. That context helps explain why even a relatively small sum like the additional £90,000 for Andrew's overseas travel has caused such a stir. It's not merely about the money, it's the fear of what broader scrutiny might reveal if the travel records were fully disclosed. As 2026 begins, the palace faces the last thing it needs: another slow drip of uncomfortable revelations about Andrew's past, particularly involving government funding, foreign trips, and meetings that were controversial even at the time. The question now is straightforward: if this single file caused such alarm, what other documents might still be sitting quietly in the archives waiting for a red marker pen? Are the redactions genuinely about privacy, or is there more here that has yet to be revealed? These are the issues driving renewed public and media attention as the story continues to unfold. The stakes are not just financial, they are reputational, diplomatic, and potentially explosive. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to stay up to date on the latest royal developments, make sure you're subscribed. Thank you for watching.